And as the person who lives in the house, you're like, I mean, hey, if he doesn't eat, he doesn't eat. But as his mother, I'm like, my son hasn't eaten. Like, I don't want him to starve. He needs to eat something. Son, are you hungry? What do you want to eat?
You don't want to create the man child.
I'm not trying to create that.
So then you have to derail it. Don't feed it. Stop feeding the behaviors that create the man child. You were telling me about your conversation with Shannon today.
So today we were talking about navigating having a child that doesn't go to college, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm saying to her, as I'm speaking and we're having this conversation, I imagined you and I and Amir like in this room, and it's pitch black, and there's these like holes in the ground, in the floor, and we are, rubbing the black walls trying to feel our way to this path in front of us, and there is no path, right? Like we don't know whether to go left or right, up or down. We are just trying to blindly feel our way through this while avoiding the pitfalls somewhere around us, because we don't know if it's in front of us.
This is an imagined thing, not a dream.
This is an imagining thing. This is not a dream. Okay. This is how I'm imagining this navigation of adulthood for him, because we had college, that time that you have in between the workforce and high school to really grow as a person, and no, you're not going to know yourself by the time you graduate in the time that you know yourself at 40, right? I know myself so much better now, but in the time that you are finishing school, you know yourself a little bit. You've matured most definitely from high school,
you've had
right?
Some finishing, some self-development.
Yes, you've had some finishing, right? But that doesn't really happen at home. That's never going to happen at home. And that's another thing. The things that we are experiencing and like watching him go through while he's at home, it's a little cringing because, we were in our college dorms doing things that our parents didn't know we were doing, and they never know. They're never gonna know, right? But
I'm sure they can assume pretty well.
We were in our college dorms, right? He's not in his college dorm. He's in my house. And so I can see some of the things he's doing, and I'm, quietly cringing. There's this mother that wants to be like, no, you can't do this. No, you can't go there. Don't do that. Don't say this. But then there's the other part that's like, well, your parents didn't do that when you were in college, so leave that boy alone. Like, he's just in his room.
I agree. And that's interesting because I don't think that you have to be his mother in order to have house rules, though. Like, there's mom rules. That's one category. Like, right. Don't do these things, but we're kind of past that age. But now we're at house rules. Like, dude, you can do whatever you want to do unless you live here and are staying here.
Right.
You want to rob a bank?
Right.
You want to be, what's that guy's, DB, whatever his name is, the guy who jumped out of the bank, robbed the bank, jumped out of a plane, disappeared forever. You want to be that guy? Do that when you are not directly tied to me with the repercussions of things.
Yeah. Like you said, there's house rules, and then there's mom rules. There's the picking up after him that I shouldn't do, but as a mother, I don't want to see your sweatshirt on the floor, or I don't want to see it on the sofa. It doesn't go there. It has a place. It's going to be very interesting to see how we navigate this. And it's definitely the three of us. It's not just him by himself experiencing this. It's definitely the three of us going through this. It's a work in progress every day. Even with him, like, learning what to cook. He doesn't know what to cook. I would ask him, what are you going to make for dinner? What do you want for dinner? And he's like, I don't know. And in my mind, I'm like, that's not something that would come out my mouth in college. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you got the calf, or you can go eat at one of whatever the restaurants are around wherever you live, right? Mm-hmm. But for him, he lives at home. So to ask him, hey, okay, it's time for you to start cooking for yourself. You got to come home from work. What are you going to make for dinner? You've decided to jump into the deep end. Like most people graduate from high school, they go to college. So they've got that buffer before adulthood hits, before rent and all that, right? But you didn't want that buffer, so now you're in the deep end. You've got to go to a 9 to 5 and then come home, and mom's not cooking dinner for you anymore. You're cooking dinner for yourself. So what are you going to cook?
I agree. So some of college is that on-ramp.
Yeah.
But I also remember no longer being in college and living in my own space, or even on my summer internships, where I'm living somewhere else, and going through those same lessons, but I didn't have anybody there, and I didn't have the internet. So I hear you, but I don't feel sorry for him or anybody this age going through that, because they have so many more resources than we did at the time, and everybody seems to figure it out. So I think, and I'm no expert, but I think that a simple shift in thinking, kind of along the lines of what we talked about a minute ago, of just never mind any mom rules, only think about the house. Like, I would never pick up a sweatshirt. I'd probably sooner kick it into the garage, because I don't allow my house to be a mess. This is not about me being your dad. It's about, this is where I live. This is also where I work. So, hey, if there's going to be a bonfire in the backyard, then I guess all the things that were left on the floor are going to be the bonfire.
I think it's easier for you, though, because as a mother of a son, I'm like, I can't do that. My son's going to need his sweatshirt. I need to bring it to his room.
Oh, hell. You the problem. You better sour that milk. Wean him.
We've talked about souring milk, like, oh, man, no, he's living way too good here. He's never going to want to leave.
Yeah, a person who's hungry is going to eat.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about hunger, right? So he's a person who, like, come home, like, hasn't eaten all day, been at work for 8 hours, come home and not eat. And as the person who lives in the house, you're like, I mean, hey, if he doesn't eat, he doesn't eat. But as his mother, I'm like, my son hasn't eaten. Like, I don't want him to starve. He needs to eat something. Son, are you hungry? What do you want to eat?
You create the monster.
It's very difficult to separate the two people, the person who's renting versus the person who's, that's my son.
You know what this reminds me of? It's just like any other really well-written television show. You have this moment where you're talking about the modern day problem, and then you get a flashback to when you faced a similar problem and see how that was handled. Right?
Okay.
You were his mom when he was 9 months old, and he would climb out of the crib and walk down the hallway in his diaper and bang on the door every night and try to get into our bed.
Yeah.
And it was time for that to end.
I remember this.
And I would close the door and just, hey, man, we're going to have a hard time sleeping, but he's going to bang on that door until he's done banging on the door. And I think the breaking night was the night that we woke up the next morning and he had brought his blanket out and slept in the hallway at the door.
When I tell you that broke my heart.
Correct.
To wake up in the morning, because clearly I had slept through that. Mm-hmm. I woke up in the morning, opened the door, and my baby is laying on the floor with his blanket on the ground and just curled up with his blanket at the door because it was locked. I melted when I saw that. So I'm still that person. Like, you didn't eat. I don't care that you're 19, about to be 20 years old. I need you to eat. You can't starve yourself, son. What are you going to eat? Do you want to eat this?
Can you imagine the requirements you place on the next generation, what the girlfriend must do? She must do all the things that mom did. You don't want to create the man child.
No, I absolutely do not want to create the man child. Nobody wants to be bothered with the man child. I'm not trying to create that.
So then you have to derail it. Don't feed it. Stop feeding the behaviors that create the man child. He's a great guy. He's a great dude. He's got some really great qualities. He's nice, he's caring, he's sharing.
Absolutely.
And all these things, hardworking, good looking, very creative, all those things. And if you feed those behaviors, he'll be more of that. But
he absolutely will, but he won't feed himself.
Well, then he'll be a skinny version of that until he decides he's hungry enough.
He's skinny now.
Well, there you go. And then he needs to fend for himself. But got money. He's got money.
That's the thing that gets me. Like, he makes money and like he's got plenty of money, right? But the boy will starve.
He'll starve until he won't. And that's it. And that's my 2 cents on it. And that is my advice for my wife on advisory mode.
I'm struggling.